Oregon homeless numbers on the rise despite shelter gains and a collective spending of over $1 billion. And homelessness goes up? What's the deal? Let's get into it. Here we go. Portland State University's annual report on homelessness in Oregon reveals a complex picture. School says, noting that big increases in shelter capacity while the number of people facing homelessness is also on the rise. I talk about this all the time, which is, if you build it, they will come. Oregon, you have built it, and they are there. They are within your community. Seattle, same thing. LA, same thing. San Fran, same thing. You guys are just building these massive homeless industrial complexes. And then you're shocked when, hey, but we've got shelter for all these folks. These people don't care about shelter. They just care about doing drugs. And you guys have created this perfect situation where these drug addicts are never, ever gonna hit rock bottom because you've provided not only shelter, but permanent supportive housing for thousands of folks. You give them food. You give them accessories to do their drugs. I mean, the list just goes on and on. You guys enable these drug addicts, and that is who are in the homeless encampments. It's not an issue of affordable housing. It's an issue of you allow these people to do their thing, and that's what they're doing. And then people are like, that's weird. They don't want to accept shelter housing? I wonder why. And a lot of folks, and here in Seattle, we've got Andrea Suarez basically coming right out and saying it, the people in the shelters and people in permanent supportive housing oftentimes still have a tent in the homeless encampments because that's where they go to be with their community of fellow drug users and do their drugs, quite simply. 2025 statewide homeless report comes from the school's Homeless Research and Action Collaborative. Let's drop down to just the figures, right? We got 27,000 people total experiencing homelessness in Oregon. That is up about 15% from last year, from 2024. All the numbers, you do have some good numbers going up here. But essentially, you just want to make sure that you're taking people off the streets and getting them to go where they want. Now, these numbers don't necessarily reflect, that net come and going, what that looks like. Hey, maybe there's more people getting off the streets than there are coming on. But all we're seeing is that total number of people experiencing homelessness based on the PIT count, the point in time count, is going up. Spending over $1 billion getting all this shelter housing. So notice they don't give a statistic there relative to the 2024 count. Then we got 10,607 people sheltered on the night of the count. Okay, those are in shelters. So they've got stats of, okay, how many people did this particular shelter have? And they've got thousands of beds throughout Oregon, throughout all the major cities. But such a big percentage comes from Portland itself or the Portland metro area. So you notice on this statistic, people sheltered on the night of the count, 49% increase from 2023. Okay. Hey, that's great. But you are literally creating a vortex for people who want to come do drugs and live the homeless lifestyle because they know, all right, yeah, we can get into a shelter anytime. They got lots of shelter too. And if I work it, I'll get permanent housing, which is, maybe just a studio somewhere. Maybe it's a tiny home. Maybe it's it's a room in a hotel that's been converted, and there's zero barrier to any of that. Just typically zero barrier. Then we've got 11,000 total year-round shelter beds available in Oregon, up 39%. Hey, that's great. That's amazing. But again, all right, so this is a stat in the right direction. But it's also a stat in the wrong direction, I would argue. Because what would happen if all of a sudden you basically said, we're not doing shelter except for the absolute worst of the worst cases. We are no longer spending any money on permanent supportive housing. We're not spending money on basically shelter at all. We're not spending money on outreach because you guys don't take it. You don't voluntarily want to go into treatment. You don't voluntarily want to get your head checked for, whatever you've got going on. And so many people within the homeless community, they've got some real mental problems and they're basically self-medicating out there. So yeah, you got total shelter beds. People experiencing unsheltered homelessness also up. That number is up, and we don't have a stat for that because that number is up and doesn't look good. 21,542 estimated number of people experiencing doubled up homelessness, living with others by necessity rather than choice. One of the big stats is the study said 16,512 people, nearly 61%, remain unsheltered. Let's watch a quick video on the mayor, and he's talking about his goals to vastly increase the number of shelters, meaning not permanent supportive housing, little individual units, but hey, we got 50 people that need to come in off the streets. Where are we going to put them? You're going to put them in shelter housing, maybe a big dormitory style deal, something along those lines. Let's watch it. Here we go.
Who have been collaborating with Portland Mayor Keith Wilson to reach his goal of ending unsheltered homelessness across the city.
They've been super helpful in working alongside us and standing up the multiple shelters that we've put together over the last year.
Earlier this week, Mayor Wilson announced that his campaign promise to add 1,500 new shelter beds by December 1st will be fulfilled.
The job is to let everybody know in the community that we have life-saving bed and it's ready for you right now.
Okay, they don't want the beds for the most part. He put together 1,500 beds. Hey, that's pretty good. That's a ton of beds. That is a massive, massive undertaking, considering all the layers of just absolute ridiculousness and, just layer upon layer upon layer of bureaucratic nightmare. 1,500. Remember that number, okay? 1,500.
Overnight shelter opening Monday in Southeast will bring the number of available beds to 1,090, and the city says the remaining 410 needed will be in reserve, ready to go at a moment's notice.
Well, it's fantastic to know that we're hitting our goals. We're taking those first steps. Obviously, overnight shelter is a first step towards a much bigger picture of what it's going to take to address Portland's homeless situation.
Many people who seek shelter say it's a crucial part of getting back on their feet.
To have a space indoors to lay my head at night is the most important thing.
Some say it's important to recognize.
See how they always interview those folks? And they are always, invariably, they're on some kind of illicit drug, right? Whether it's fentanyl, whether it's meth, whether it's crack, whether it's whatever. And they're talking about, just need a place to lay my head. Well, you've been doing drugs all day. I get it. And you're a female. You go into the homeless encampments, you just get, handed around like candy. Just crazy.
Many do not expect to end up needing shelter.
Been applying to a lot of jobs. One hasn't stuck yet, so it's a bit disheartening to be denied a cashier job at fast food.
The mayor and his team say they know reaching this goal is...
Maybe there's a reason you're getting denied at 7-Eleven. You know what I mean? You got to look through that resume. You got to look at how you're approaching things. Maybe don't do drugs within 24 hours of that first interview. Just throwing out ideas there.
Just one small piece of tackling Portland's homeless crisis.
Take a quick look at this. We are we're the fourth, maybe the sixth paragraph in, something like that. Marisa Zapata, director of HRAC, said high rent, and other economic pressures are largely attributed to the continued rise in the number of people experiencing homelessness, along with a lack of affordable housing options. That is such nonsense. Go to any homeless encampment, hang out there for a couple of days, and tell me that these people were just a day away from losing their job, and they just lost their job, and then they lost their place. No, these are whacked out drug addicts who are mentally ill. It's not due to a lack of affordable housing. It's just not. High rent. There's a lot of really super high rent areas in the United States that have zero homelessness. And do you know why they have Beverly Hills? Good example, right? Beverly Hills. And do you know why? Because they don't tolerate it. Portland not only tolerates it, it accommodates it. because it's progressive and it's got this ideology, which is basically housing first. Just give them a place to sleep, to stay, give them their own roof over their head, and they're going to be absolutely fine. That is not the case. It's never the case. All right. The report said Oregon, this is the huge number right here. The report said Oregon would need nearly 96,000 more housing units to address the state's current shortage. Remember when I said 1,500? Now we've got 96,000 more housing units to address the state's current shortage. 96,000. I did the math with the total number of homelessness. It's like Oregon is spending somewhere $45,000 per year per homeless person for all of this stuff. You know, that whole 1 step forward, 2 steps back, whatever that thing is, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Well, you know, Portland created 1,500 units. They need 96,000. They've spent $1.1 billion collectively total, and homelessness has gone up by about 15%. Yeah, you are literally just building it and they will come, but they're already there. They're just now adding on to the problem. And another one of Portland's stories is City of Portland plans to evict nearly 100 people from tiny home villages. They're actually kind of getting to that point where if you haven't engaged in services, we're not going to go in depth on this, but if you haven't engaged in services in 120 days, in 4 months, then they're basically going to boot you out. And it should be, hey, in order for you to get this housing, we need you to take a UA. We need to understand that you're not doing the crazy stuff that all those folks in the homeless encampments are. We're going to give you housing, but here's the deal. We need you to do something for us. That's where this should go. It should be conditional. It should be, you do this, we'll do this for you. But none of this, hey man, just come on in and we'll give you housing, which is typically exactly how it goes. So Portland Mayor Keith Wilson just laid out his plan to evict 80 to 90 people from the state's safe rest villages starting next month. Yes, he's enacting stay limits, and engagement requirements are nationwide best practices because they're actually trying to come up with things that work. And we know that all the numbers are going in the wrong direction. Homelessness is still going up. It's not like crime where you can hide the numbers, right? You can't cook the books on the homelessness numbers when you've got a pit count. Because all throughout the United States right now, criminal activity is way down, crime is way down. And yet, I think it's just flat out not, because most of that crime that you're talking about is simply no longer being reported. Whereas the homeless folks, we know we've got a count of them, whether they're in the shelters, whether they're in the permanent, supportive housing, all that good stuff. And then they go out and they literally do a quick count one night in January, and they look around and they go into places that, known homeless environments, and they do a manual head count. Not very accurate, but it's better than nothing. But what we're seeing is literally no matter how much shelter, permanent supportive housing, or money is being spent, these numbers keep going up. And it's because other states that don't provide all these resources to their homeless, they're leaving those areas because they can't operate. They can't function like they can in Portland. They can't function like they can in Seattle. They can't function like they have been able to historically in San Francisco. But even that area is changing because they've hit rock bottom and gone, we can't do this. Our businesses downtown have been absolutely eviscerated, and street conditions were a large part of that. Street conditions are a large part of this in Portland as well. But you know what we keep saying? Just, hey man, here's your paraphernalia. Here's your tiny home. Here's your shelter. Here's your, everything except for them taking treatment. Everything, because they don't want to. They don't want to. So this storyline keeps on going until somebody starts to have some tough love. Will Portland officials have tough love? I don't think so. Not anytime soon, anyway. Not anytime soon. So Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell. I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining. Bye for now.